This is going to be a video regarding exotic heavies and what you're going to do when Anarchy gets nerfed and what you're going to use. Now they've stated, this video, I'm not trying to make it clickbait or something, they have stated they're going to nerf Anarchy, but they're going to nerf it appropriately so that it doesn't do every job in the game. Okay, so it may still be good for certain things, it may even still be good. I suspect this is how they'll nerf it. I'm probably going to be wrong, this is my prediction. They're going to nerf it in terms of the Anarchy traps when they're stuck to the ground. If they don't hit a target, they despawn sooner. That's number one. The damage over time overall is going to get nerfed by a couple of percent. Don't know how much by. This is what I think they're going to do. If you set a trap up, as I said, that'll despawn. They may not synchronize, the traps might not have as much range to link up. So say if I put one trap at one end of the room and 10 meters, put one there, they probably won't link up. So there'll be a shorter distance between the traps. That'll be another thing. The ammo capacity of the weapon might get nerfed. It holds 26. See what it was, it used to hold more. Then they changed rapid fire grenade launchers to hold more ammo, but Anarchy also got this buff. Because it's kind of classed as, I don't even know if I look, not even classed as a rapid fire frame or something, but it did get a buff in ammo, and it now holds 30. It used to hold less, sorry, it used to hold less, so it now holds more ammo than it ever has, and that was something that went back ages ago. I can't remember when it was, but they did do that change, and it made a change to Anarchy. So what else are you going to use? I'm going to go through two categories. So the first category will be what other exotic heavies are there to use that are going to be viable in Grandmaster difficulty, Master Raids, Master Dungeons, because Master Dungeons are coming out. Master Raids coming out soon, but Master Dungeons are as well. So the category will be not legendaries, but exotic heavies. Then I'll go on to exotic kinetics and energies. What can you pair? What weapon pairings have you got? Because this exotic is great for weapon pairing. So you can pair this weapon and use it with a weapon like a grenade launcher. Right there, I've got one. Or a slug shotgun, whatever you want. So that's been the playstyle of this weapon for ages. Or I use a sniper, whatever, you get the point. But there's other weapons in this game you can do pairings with, synergy, and get different legendaries to synergize with different exotics. Anarchy's been the king at it, but it might not be after the nerf. So I'll go through the exotics. I'm going to talk briefly about the ones that are underwhelming, and I'm going to talk more at length about the ones that are really powerful. You know, so if I don't talk about one for long, it means I can straight away tell you it has no place for you as a solo player or in a raid team. So this will focus more on if you're soloing something or if you're in a raid team of 6 players. And I'll talk about two, you know, so one weapon might be, oh, it's good at solo, but it's not good as a team. Because the two different playstyles completely. So the Prospector, this is the first one, exotic grenade launcher. I used it in a video recently. It's got really good burst damage. With the catalyst it helps out, it improves it. Which you need to put that on to get that going, and you make your masterwork orbs. It states that when you fire grenades, release to detonate all live grenades at once. Grenades stick to surfaces and set targets on fire. So it has that utility of setting off all your nades at once, which can do really high burst damage, or you can just fire it with full auto, just, you know, go ham with it, burst damage. A legendary grenade launcher will outperform this grenade launcher. It's got that utility, but you don't want to waste your exotic slot on this. It's good, but it's not that good. I would say it's a 7 out of 10, this exotic. I'll go by out of 10s for each one. Tractor cannon. This exotic was really good. It debuffs enemies. You get a debuff for any weapon damage or ability damage you do. This exotic has more utility for solo player than it does as a raid team, because the thing is, in a raid team, your player, one of your players is going to have divinity on. If you don't have divinity, then use tractor cannon, that's fine. But the thing is, when you're solo, right, If you use Divinity solo, you don't have the time to put out your damage, because once you've swapped off Divinity, the Divinity bubble leaves. Therefore you can't use it. So I would say that this is better for solo play, and it works for certain situations where you're focusing your damage from your super as opposed to weapons. So Tractor Cannon, I would say it's a good 8 out of 10 exotic for solo play. For team, less so. Legend of Acrius, this is a weapon exotic that's been neglected. It's very inconsistent with its damage. When you get the catalyst, it's 6 bullets in the magazine, so that increases its damage loads a lot. But is it going to be used in Grandmasters? No. The problem is, if you're going to go close quarters, because you can sometimes in Grandmasters, especially if you've got a Titan bubble and you need to sword a boss. Tree of Probabilities was a classic example of one where you could use a sword even on Grandmaster difficulty. 3 swords, 1 phase him. If you're going to go close quarters with a weapon, then a sword is going to be better than this weapon. It needs a buff. It needs to be more consistent in what it does. It says it has max range. It doesn't. It doesn't. It has max range when you hit 2 targets, because the arc wave will go from one target to the next. But if it's just a boss, it doesn't. You need to be really close, unless you've got Lunafaction boots. So it's not there. It's not there. It's a 6 or 7 out of 10 really with that. Darcy, not saying much about it. It's one of the worst heavy exotics in the game. They need to swap this to the special slot, which it sounds like they're open to it. I've heard somewhere where they're open to doing that. So in the future they could change it. If they put it in the special slot, it's viable. They don't, it's not, unless they give it a major buff. Warcliffe Coil is situational. It's a 10 out of 10 exotic when it's usable. So let's give you an example. Gorgons. The Gorgons maze in Vault of Glass. It is the best weapon for that, because I think what it is, if an enemy's classed as a vehicle, or it's classed as something that's weak to explosive damage, then it excels. Some bosses can get one phased by it. I don't know whether it's a bug or what. Like if you remember Strange Terrain Nokris, you could one phase him on your own solo with this exotic. Okay, it was extremely powerful on certain bosses. What was it, Spyro Stars? I can't remember the boss, but he used to be one phase so easy with this exotic. So this exotic it's good sometimes, but sometimes it isn't, because its range, the catalyst gives it range, but it hasn't got the range like a normal rocket launcher. So a legendary rocket will do you better than what Warcliffe Coil would. The colony, it needs a damage buff. There's nothing else to be said about it. It needs the buff. Worldline Zero, it is a arc exotic sword that used to be used for speedrunning. The heavy attack's decent on single targets, but there's better exotic swords and even legendary swords to use over this weapon. Sleeper Simulant is a... Right now, I'm going to tell you how I like it now and how it's going to be after the patch. So right now, I've used this stuff, I've used Sleeper Simulant in endgame stuff for ages. Even when it got nerfed. See, this weapon got nerfed because of Gambit. And kind of Eater of Worlds. Because of the amount of burst damage you could do on him with the Sleeper Shot bouncing within the Hydra's shield type thing. That got nerfed because of those two things, more so Gambit. So us PvE players have had to suffer and use weapons like Anarchy or other weapons or Lament, and we haven't had the chance to use Sleeper in its prime because of Gambit. One mode in this game has made... This is my favourite exotic in the game because of what it was like when it came out. It came out in a time in Destiny when Destiny was at its prime, 10 out of 10. People actually, when it first came out, said it was rubbish. They said it doesn't compare to Galahorn. And then when Wrath of the Machine came out, it was the best weapon, one of the best weapons. For that, it was also amazing for King's Fall. Whisper of the Worm was as well. Sorry, the Black Spindle, whatever they called it then. But right now, it's actually half decent. The way I would compare this weapon right now is it's similar to a legendary rocket. A legendary rocket will do, depending on what role you've got, maybe do slightly more damage or a bit more damage than what this will. The thing is, a legendary rocket launcher will have 1 in the mag, 2 in the mag if you're lucky with a clown cartridge, or if you're using Truth, it's free. But Truth hasn't got the damage. So Sleeper Simulant right now is medium tier. It's a 8 out. It's maybe a 7.5 out of 10 right now. I'm maybe slightly favourable to it because it's my favourite exotic in the game, just because of how it looks, what it does, and how it feels, and when it came out in Destiny 1, the memories of it. So I would say right now it's usable in Masters. In Grandmasters, it's kind of usable there as well. I've actually used it in Grandmasters. In a team, not solo. It isn't viable solo Grandmaster, no. After the buff, 16.5%, yeah, it's going to be usable for Grandmaster solos, it's going to be usable for dungeons, it's going to be usable for raids, everything. It's going to be the single highest target damage shot in the game. Period. And it's got 3 in the mag. That will out damage any rocket launcher that you have. Unless you pair the rocket launcher with something that I'll talk about later. So this is going to be one of the best exotics in the game, if not the best. It's going to have its role though. Is it going to be able to fill Anarchy's role? Maybe not, because it will fill it, but it won't fill it as good, because Anarchy has 26 now. Sleeper Simulant has 14 with reserves. You can't really go reserves in your Grandmasters. So you're going to be limited to 13, 12, whatever it is. I think it's 13. If you're using 2 shots on a champion, if 2 shots will do it with a shield break, then this weapon's viable for Grandmaster solos. If it's going to be that you need 3 shots for a champion on Grandmaster, not going to quite cut it. You're going to have to work harder on your Grandmasters. It's as simple as that. People who have been soloing these Grandmasters with Anarchy and stuff, and that's all you use, you're going to have to work harder for your solos. Me included, because I've used it. We're all guilty of it, because it's been best in class for so long. So this is going to be interesting to see how it turns out. Whisper of the Worm is a very good exotic heavy sniper, because it reloads itself on precision shots. It isn't built for champions, because the Whispered Breathing, when you get the catalyst, the Whispered Breathing takes 2 or 3 seconds to proc when aimed down sights. That's too long. It's too long to be waiting to take damage. You lose so much damage because of that on a champion. So it's not good for solo player, unless you're doing something that doesn't include champions. However, it's amazing. It's amazing for raids. If you have 6 people with this, or maybe 5 people with a divinity, and the boss is sniper friendly, you're good to go. This is one of the best things you can use. So yeah, it's good. But for solo player, no, not so much. Then we got 1000 Voices. This is going to be something similar. You could compare it to Sleeper Simulant, even though Sleeper Simulant's a linear. This is a fusion rifle. It's not going to be anywhere near as good as Sleeper, because this 1000 Voices only holds 7 in the magazine. It's no good for solo. You run out of ammo so fast. In a raid, it's a bit better, because when you're saving your ammo for damage and you've got 6 people with this, that's a lot of damage. It's really good that when you use it like that. But when its total damage isn't good enough. The ammo doesn't go far enough. Okay? Then we've got Two-Tailed Fox. This is a rocket launcher that fires double track and rockets, void and solar. This will also take down solar match game shields and void match game shields. Sorry. So this is gonna be outperformed by most legendary rockets. So I wouldn't recommend it over a legendary rocket, but I would say it's 8 out of 10. It's decent. 6 people are using it. Yeah, it's decent, but I would say legendary rocket's better. Then we go to Black Talon, the exotic void sword, one of the best swords in the game, for burst damage. You use this sword for burst damage, not sustained. Sustained damage is something like where you have a relentless strike swallowing blade sword. This sword isn't used like that. This sword is used for more where you just want to take down a priority target quickly. So if you're going to use it solo wise, which is viable, it would be possible to solo a Grandmaster with this, because it's a ranged sword. So you do your 2 heavy attacks, then the champion will pop a shield, you break that shield with whatever weapon you have at that particular season, then you can go in with some light swings and then do another heavy. That will kill your champion. It's very good. It's an exceptional sword. If you cannot go close quarters, but you want close quarters damage, do this sword. Now we'll talk about Queen Breakers last. Thunderlord. So machine guns are getting a buff. It's being stated they're going to be buffed. By how much? I don't know. Thunderlord is the best machine gun for ad clear in the game. Apart from 7 Severus Sword that can make Warmind cells, but Warmind cells are going to get nerfed at some point. So excluding that, Thunderlord's best exotic LMG in the game. So if you require an LMG and you have an exotic slot spare to use, spend it on Thunderlord. It's really good, and when you get the LMG buff going, it's going to be amazing. So if you do need an encounter, because some encounters lend themselves to machine guns better than a rocket, some of them lend themselves better to a sword than a machine gun. Depends what you're doing. But if you need a machine gun, it's amazing. This is one of the best exotics in terms of a machine gun. Then we've got Anarchy, which is nerfed, of course, will be getting nerfed. Truth, this is a PvP exotic. I don't need to talk about it too much. Deathbringer has now got a catalyst where it buffs the Dark Deliverance potential. You reach to the fullest potential quicker. It means that you don't need to aim so far in the sky, because you shoot this thing up in the air and then it breaks the orbs down to the target. The higher the orbs travel to the target, the more damage, but you don't need to do that as much with the catalyst. The problem is this exotic is very difficult to use. You need to know the playstyle of this exotic. It's going to take you a couple of hours, maybe a couple of weeks to even get used to it. But when you get used to it, this exotic's amazing, and you'll see this being used in Grandmasters. Even solos, you would be able to solo a Grandmaster with this, because you probably could only get away with using 1-2 shots, and you can be on your way. And its reserves, I think it's 8, 7. It's decent-ish. I would still say Sleeper Simulant's going to be better for me, my playstyle. Well, I could see Deathbringer being decent. In raids, it'll be amazing. Again, it depends on the boss, but it's amazing as it is now. It's a really good exotic. Then we've got Xenophage. I said the machine guns are getting a buff. This is a machine gun. Right now, it's very good. It's good for Grandmasters. It's good for Masters. It's good for raids. It's good for everything. It makes Warmind cells. It's good on single target damage. It's good on ultras and majors. It's not as good on bosses if you are underpowered. If you're doing a Grandmaster and you're underpowered, it doesn't do that much damage to the boss, but it does a bit of damage to champions. It's amazing on champions. So I could see this being gravitating to one of the best exotics to use solo when Anarchy gets nerfed. If Anarchy is nerfed to the ground, or what have you, then this exotic is going to be higher up in the rankings. I'm not going to say it's number 1. It could be top 5, top 3 exotics to be using solo wise. Leviathan's Breath, this is good for unstoppable champions, but it has a lot of ammo. I'll be honest, if you put on double bow reserves with the catalyst, you get 18. With the catalyst, that increases it to 15, and I think you get 18 in total. That's a lot of ammo. It does Sleeper Simulant type damage. It won't be as good as Sleeper when it gets its buff. And it's only 1 bow per shot. It's not like it's got a mag, of course, because it's a bow. So it's usable and it's not usable. It's iffy. I would say in the right circumstances it's good. Not always though. It's fine as it is. Here apparent, it's getting the machine gun buff, as I said. Now if machine guns get a base precision multiplier buff, depending on how that goes, this could be really good, because here apparent obviously is a rapid, its rate of fire is really good. Okay, so when you get the charge going, you get the overshield, and it actually works in Grandmasters. If you know what you're doing with it, you can stay alive with it. Problem is, in Grandmasters it just doesn't do that enough damage, but with the machine gun buff it may well do. So this exotic could be really good. The charge up time is a bit harsh, it takes a bit to spin up. Once you get going with it, it's actually decent. It's okay now, it's like a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 exotic now, but when the machine gun buff, it could become really good. But the catalyst, you need the catalyst really going with it. Eyes of Tomorrow, obviously it's going to be really good. I haven't got it, but that's why I'm not going to talk about it much, but that's going to be a choice that people are going to use. Salvation's Grip, it hasn't got any utility for anything unless there's going to be a seasonal stasis mod that buffs stasis and buffs light based subclasses like we had. If you do something like that with it, then that's fine, but as it is now, it has no place for anything much apart from breaching walls. Then you've got the exotic sword Lament. If you can get in close to a boss and you don't really need Black Talon, then use this. It also breaks anti-barrier shields. Expect to see this still rampant in solos and in raids and in dungeons. It's got nerfed several times. It's still decent. I don't think they need to nerf it though. Don't nerf it again. Leave it as it is, because there's a sword in the game, Crown Splitter, that can double the damage of this sword. So let's just leave it as it is. I think it's in a spot where you can still use it. People still like this exotic, but it's not the most powerful thing in the world. But it's really good on barriers. It's good when you need a sword, but some legendary swords can out DPS it. But it's got that health regen built within it. So I think it's still decent to use. So this is a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 exotic for me. That's the exotics covered. Okay, so that's exotic heavies covered. That's it over. Now we're going to the Anarchy pairings. So Anarchy, it's been so good not just because of what it does, it's what you compare it with. So you generally you could run double slug. Obviously this is the most powerful setup sort of in the game. You'd go Anarchy double slug, right? Or you could go, for solos, for a lot of solos, you go double primary. So you go, you know, it depends on the mods. I don't know. It could be whatever season you're running. Say you'd have this for antibarrier, this for whatever overload, and then you'd have Anarchy. So you'd have double primary Anarchy, and you get a lot of ammo that way. That means you can do consistent damage to champions solo. It also means you can break both shields, barrier, and whatever it might be. Also, it's really been good in terms of Anarchy Sniper. So there's a lot of pairings. It's a parent style exotic, but there's other exotics in the game that has this utility. So, as I told you earlier, machine guns are getting a buff. So what we could do is switch the DPS roll on its head and have your kinetic or your energy doing that. So a good example of this is Izanagi's Burden. So we do Izanagi's Burden and we do a machine gun. You could go 7 Seraph Sword for the cells. And then you would have this weapon as a primary. So you've got something to do with barriers for your team. You've got burst damage, and you've got ad clear. That's really good. When you need an LMG in something, there's a lot of ads, and we're going that way. The game's ad dense. We're going for ad density now in things. So machine guns are going to be coming top. The exotic slot's getting narrower in terms of what you can use and what it is. We're going to be starting to gravitate to exotics in the energy slots and the kinetic slots and using machine guns. That's where the meta's going. The meta's kind of that now anyways, just not everyone uses it still. So basically you can have 2 people with Izanagi's Burden on, 1 person with Divinity on, and you can one-shot champions that way. 2 shots each of ×4 honed edge kills a champion on Grandmaster. That's amazing. This is more for a team that's coordinating. You don't be doing this on LFG. Obviously they're not going to have mics, so you're doing it where you're talking to your teammates on when you're taking which champion and when you're doing what. So that's a good pairing. If you wanted to go double DPS, so you're in a dungeon or a raid with your team, then you could do that. You could go rocket launcher. You go rocket launcher sniper, so you can do your ×4 honed edge, switch to a rocket, maybe an all-alone rocket, so you do your rocket, then you go back to your sniper, do a bit of snipe damage, and then back and forth. It's an amazing combination. Or you could go legendary linear, because legendary linears are really good right now. People aren't using them because of Anarchy. But when Anarchy, if it does go down to a B tier exotic, they may start doing that. So you could run, you know, things like Freddy Needle. It's an amazing legendary linear. Use them. They got the buff. They got the 15% buff. They've got it right now. And they're good right now. I've seen people solo Grandmasters with these. They're very good. So another pairing would be the exotic grey launcher Witherhoard, which I believe is best in slot for me. I would rather use this than Izanagi's, but I can also see how Izanagi's is better in some instances, but this is also better than Izanagi's. I think it's a better weapon for solo. If you're playing solo and your build and the season can allow you to do Witherhoard, as long as there's the mods available to you for, you know, for all the champions, then Witherhoard is really good. It's also really good for solo damage. It's if you pair this with a auto-loading weapon, so you could do the legendary linear, or you could do a grenade launcher with auto-loading. This one doesn't have it, but I've got loads of interferences in my vault that do. I just picked the wrong one out. Or you could put auto-loading holster lasting impression with Witherhoard. So the combo is you do 2 Witherhoard shots, 1 at the body of a boss and 1 on the floor. because a body shot and a floor shot stack together to give you more damage. Then you swap to your rocket, do your lasting impression rocket at the boss, swap off this, do your 2 Witherhoard shots, then back to this, and so on and so forth. That combo has a high total damage, and I explained this the other day. You don't need DPS in a solo player. Solo players don't need DPS unless they're solo in a raid. They don't need it. Teams do need it, but solo players don't. They just need to be able to put out a high amount of damage in their ammo that they have. So it's not time based so much. That's what makes Witherhoard so good. It's best in class. It's really good for adds as well. It's good for adds. You can combine it with cells as well by using a cell weapon. I don't have one on me right now to show you. It's very good. It's one of the best exotics in the game in my eyes. Then we switch off and show you another pairing. So we could say have a primary here. Then we have Cloud Strike and then a rocket. Cloud Strike in my eyes is one of the best snipers in the game. It puts out a lot of damage, especially if you send people with 6 people with this on a raid boss, or even 3 people in a Grandmaster. 3 people in a Grandmaster can wreck champions with this. You don't even need Divinity, or you could go Divinity 2 Cloud Strike if you wanted to do it like that. This is an amazing exotic, especially with the storm damage it does. When it's anti-barrier sniper, the storm damage is classed as anti-barrier. So say you run out of ammo, the actual lightning will break the shield, but we haven't got an anti-barrier up on the snipers to show you that right now. But it was up last season. So you could pair that again with an auto-loading rocket or a machine gun, depends on what you're doing. Really good damage, I like this exotic. Then you've got Jotunn. Whenever you're underpowered in a game, and you will be a lot in Grandmasters, Jotunn's really good. You can actually use this weapon as long as you can fit it out into your loadout, it's very good. You could pair it with a machine gun, rocket, linear, sword, depends what you're doing. But it's really good in what it does. It does that tracking damage, it does that damage over time a little bit. The target burns for a little bit, not like Anarchy or something or Witherhoard, but it does do that a little bit. Jotunn's A grade. It's a 9 out of 10 exotic for me for PvE. It lacks a little bit on ammo side, okay, but it's really good. And it takes special ammo, so you can always run special ammo finisher with that. Then we've got the exotic Telesto, similar role to Jotunn. It doesn't have tracking, but it does so much damage. It reloads itself, especially if you've got the catalyst. So this weapon is A grade. It's a 9 out of 10. You can certainly make this work in runs. It's really good for ag clear. It's so good for single tag damage. It's good against bosses. If it hasn't got that damage that you want, then again pair it with another damage weapon in your heavy, and you're good to go. The last exotic I'll talk about is Eriana's Vow. So Eriana's Vow is amazing for solo play. If the anti-barrier season is say sidearm or it's SMG, and Scout and Pulse or any other long range weapon isn't available to us, then you use Eriana's Vow because you can reliably take anti-barrier shields on Grandmaster or Master, any mode you like. And it has auto-load holster, so you break the shield, you can do a bit of damage to your hand cannon, then you could swap to a rocket, swap to a machine gun, a sword, whatever you want to do, and then swap back to this, and you have a weapon capable of taking down shields. This hand cannon can hold up to 30 bullets. That's loads. That's so much ammo. That's so much damage in that magazine, in that total worth of bullets you have. So this is top tier. It's like a 10 out of 10 exotic for me. I don't use it a lot these days because I like to just use anti-barrier scout, but Eriana's Vow, it's top tier, it's worth using. So that was the video on it, on my ideas. Again, I don't know what they're doing with Anarchy, so it's hard to say, but these are just, a lot of it's predictions, but a lot of it's telling you honestly what exotics are good right now, and what will be. Hope you enjoy, thank you.